hear ye, and welcome to the Royal Geek Podcast. I am your host tonight, Justin Sandoval, a.k.a. Sandy, and I am joined tonight by my good friend, Anthony Amato, who we like to call Shamato. It may sound a little different tonight because there is no T-Roll. T-Roll is not even in this country right now. He is gallivanting around in Europe right now with his lovely wife, and he probably won't even listen to this episode. So
probably won't. He heard about G-Day in Monarch, and he was like, I just have to get out of this country.
Yeah, because they don't mess with Europe. They just mess with Asia and America.
Yeah, it's all Pacific Rim.
Yep, there it is. But so yeah, we're here, and if Shimano didn't allude to it, we are going to be continuing our review of Monarch: Legacy of Monsters. We are in episode 5.
Yes.
And this episode is titled The Way Out. So, all that being said, let's get down to the business. Follow us at Royal Geek Pod on all of our socials. Subscribe to us wherever you listen to your podcast. We really do appreciate it. Feel free to give us a 5-star review. I feel like if you've been listening for a while and you have not done a review, shame on you. Get it done, okay? Make it happen.
Unless you're going to give us less than 5 stars, then stay where you're at.
Yeah, there you go. That's listen to Shimano. All right. All that being said, this is a spoiler review, and we are going to get into that. So, Shimano, what were your takeaways from episode 5?
All right. So my biggest takeaway so far is I feel like there are two conflicting parts of this series as a whole. I think there's like the storyline, and the storyline is on one path, and how you feel about the characters is like on a completely different path. And I feel like the storyline and like where it's going, I'm really just like intrigued, and I'm enjoying all of that. I feel like I'm very confused and not super into the likability of a lot of the characters. Like I feel like on the character side, the 3 young characters to me are kind of hard to like in a lot of ways. And
no, for sure. Absolutely, man.
So that's how I'm kind of feeling right now.
You're not a huge Kate fan after this episode?
Not particularly. Like she's all right.
Yeah.
I feel like my first instinct on this very first thing that was said in this episode made no sense for her character. Because she's like she has the very first line in the episode, and she's like, she says something along the lines of, "You think this black op scares me?" Like, and it's like, okay, like you were a school teacher, like how is like
listen, G-Day changes you, man. Apparently,
I get that you saw like all these monsters and stuff like that, but like that like attempt at pretending to be hard is like didn't make a whole lot of sense to me.
I think what she was alluding to was, you only get to this point by watching the rest of the episode, is like she saw her class, her children that she taught, like die and get massacred, and like she watched the bus fall into the bay. And I think that's like, oh yeah, this black op tactics is not gonna mess with me. I've seen children die, like that kind of thing. Like that's her mentality, and I think that's the only reason why she was saying that or alluding to that. But we wouldn't have known that after just the first line. But we realized that later on.
Yeah, I just feel like it was like an attempt to like make her seem like she was a harder character than she really is. Like I would have been more okay with, like, to tell you the truth, I enjoy her like breaking moments a little bit, like the idea of like her having PTSD and being scarred. Like I understand those moments, like that those moments of vulnerability make sense to me for her character. Like the pretending to be this like tough person doesn't like it doesn't make a whole lot of sense for her character. Like and I know they've been like trying to say, oh, she's strong and stuff like that, but it doesn't really like, I don't know, fit her character in a lot of ways.
Yeah, no, I definitely get that. Some of the younger characters, I do believe, like Kentaro, May, and obviously Kate, what we're talking about, they are not really pulling their weight with the storyline.
I think they feel incredibly uneven to me. Like it feels like they make these dramatic whiplash like changes, and it seems like for no reason, between moments of extreme like I understand what's going on and I am very much like I am the hero, to these moments of like extreme like I'm a child. I don't understand what's going on. I'm very selfish type of like moments.
Yeah.
Like I feel like, and I don't feel like you're seeing the reasoning why they're switching between these two very well. Like that's like one of the biggest like things that's like I feel like I'm getting thrown back and forth with these characters with these moments of them making decisions, and you're not seeing like the reasoning of why they're doing things.
Yeah, there's been a few moments, like especially in this episode, where you were dealing with, on one end, a secret government organization. I
Yes.
feel like just saying that sentence alone, you're being put into a certain mindset, right?
Yeah.
And then on the flip side of it, you're dealing with these three younger actors that are kind of in their own little world and not realizing that there is a secret government organization. Like,
Yeah.
get your mind adjusted to what that actually means. And we kind of see that with May a little bit as she progresses through this episode, but in the wrong direction. Like she, like toward the end of the episode, she kind of turns on them, which a secret government organization is gonna make you do. I mean, if they do it better than anybody else, but yeah. So I don't know. I feel like the demeanor and the way that the characters are acting don't reflect quote unquote secret government organization.
Like the mood of the rest of the TV show. Like there's a lot of like uneven likeness to it that's happening. Even like, okay, so for example, there's a moment where they're trying. I know what they were doing. What they were doing is they were once again trying to build a bond between a brother and sister, who were estranged, or not estranged, but were just starting. They're just at the start of the relationship. But it felt out of place when he was just like randomly calling out something that their father would do. And I understand what they were trying to do. They were trying to create a connection between the two of them. But it felt completely out of place with the gravity of what they were doing.
You mean the fact that if they get caught by the military, they can get shot? That's
yes,
what you're talking about?
Exactly. Like,
yeah, no, that was so funny. Like when they were like going back and forth singing this stupid commercial song.
Yeah,
I'm like, you do realize like there's people trying to kill you. Like,
yeah.
So yeah, that was a little bit of a turnoff for sure.
Yeah.
But you mentioned back and forth, like kind of like unbalanced kind of stuff,
Yes.
right? What about Kurt Russell's character, the Shaw? And shouldn't he be like 90? This is a second reference now. Shouldn't he be like 90 something?
Like they're definitely playing at this idea that there is something more to his aging.
Correct.
You know?
I think there's a lot to speculate there.
Yes.
I mean, obviously, he came into contact with something. Like,
yes,
I'm assuming radiation is a huge part because obviously, like we saw the plutonium, like they needed.
Yes.
Was plutonium, right?
I believe so.
Yeah. So maybe like long exposures to radiation has caused this effect.
Yeah, or maybe just like being around Mutos too many times, or like maybe there was a situation with one of the Mutos that
blood or something,
like
right?
Something along that line, or maybe he was. Maybe part of the reason why he isn't so fond of Monarch is maybe he got tested on. Maybe there was something that happened with. Maybe part of the break of it was they tested something on him, and it ended up being something that he didn't want to be tested, or he didn't think about being tested, and it ended up like affecting him in this way.
I just hope that they actually address it because we've had two kind of throwaway lines.
Yeah, I feel like it's become it's past the point of a throwaway.
Yeah.
It has to be something now. If otherwise, it doesn't make sense. Once again, like it has to be something now.
Yeah. And like the first time it was said by I think it was either Kate
May.
or May.
I think it was.
May. I think
it was May. She was like, shouldn't he be like 90?
Yeah,
like,
and which cool. Okay, I can accept that.
Yeah.
Right, that's fine.
Especially because of the age of her character, it makes sense. Like,
correct.
And kind of like a funny way to be like anyone older than you should be agent, like that kind of idea.
But then when like agents of our government are saying this
playing
now,
on that,
then something's got to be addressed.
Yes.
Like we got to know more about it, and I hope it does get addressed fairly soon because this divide of like two separate entities within the show with like you mentioned, the storyline is honestly very entertaining.
Yes.
The storyline, but then like the characters and the way that they're driving the story, like I feel like we're focusing more on the younger actors, which I mean there's some redeeming qualities of them, but right now I'm all in on like the government aspect of it, which I mentioned that I think on the last review. that the flashbacks to the 50s I was all about, and like that's more
entertaining.
Yeah, entertaining to me because
which we've been 2 episodes without.
Yeah,
now.
2 episodes without that. Which at this point, are we gonna get it any more of that? I mean, I don't know.
I feel like if they're gonna do something, okay, so we have to kind of see the split between Shaw and Randa, I believe, at some point, and I believe it's got to have something to do with their feelings about the grandmother.
Oh yeah,
and her dying. Like I feel like there's got to be something there, like maybe the way they felt about the way that Monarch was going, maybe how it was set up. Who knows? Maybe although Shaw has been kind of like on the more rebel side at the moment in this, maybe that's in a reaction to him being more on the government side. Maybe what happened was after this, like, Bill went a little more on the rogue side.
Yeah.
More towards his more conspiracy theory side, which he has kind of always leaned in that direction after the grandmother's death. And maybe Shaw is more decided to stick with the government side because, of course, he was in the military.
Yeah.
So maybe that's how they split, and maybe he's talking about how how Monarch functions and stuff like that. Maybe it took him a while. Maybe he originally sided with the more government, the more bureaucratic side of it, and now he's kind of like making up for it by being like his eyes have been opened to the faults of the organization.
Yeah, and so missing out on that aspect of the show, I feel like, and leaning more towards on the younger guys just trying to discover what's going on with their dad. I feel like, I don't know, it's kind of continuing to really put a hard line on the show, like we mentioned earlier, about they're two different feelings. Different feelings completely. And I really hope we get back to telling the story, because I will say this. We only got one shot of a flashback scene of a monster, of the Titan. We got Godzilla and the flashback scenes from the movie. We didn't get any more. We've usually ended every episode with a Titan, like some sort of Titan. And we didn't do that. And I mean, I don't know. I kind of want to see the development from whatever these craters are, whatever these holes are in the earth.
Yeah.
Especially with the new Godzilla trailer that just dropped. I don't know if you watched it or not. Did you watch the new?
I have not seen it yet. No.
Well, those craters are prominent in the trailer.
Gotcha.
And I'm like, okay, so we need to be researching more about this, and which clearly I think we're going to probably head to another location in the next episode.
Yes, which actually, me saying Pacific Rim is actually an inaccurate statement.
Yes, well, up until this episode, yes. But now we're going to be heading to, I believe, Africa, I believe. And
well, I guess it depends on what side of Africa. You can kind of like, if it's on the western side, if it's on the eastern side, you know, you have the Indian Ocean right there, and more at least closer to the Asia side, but
that's true.
Depending on what side they end up going to.
From the map, it looked like it was gonna be the western side, though.
Yeah,
it
did.
It looked like it was gonna be like kind of where like Wakanda is, but
yeah, it looks like it definitely more like a Nigeria or like Angola, like that type of that side instead of on the eastern side.
Yeah,
but there are definitely there's a lot of interesting things. I think. I would love to actually. There's been a lot of hinting, and even Shaw has been like everything he said in this episode was just. It's all essentially verbal clickbait in my mind. Everything that he's been saying is just oh well, you guys don't understand. You guys aren't quite getting what's going on. You have no idea what's going on, but he isn't actually saying anything. He's not
giving you the full picture. He's just letting you know that he knows more, and if you want to know more, then you need to
you
listen
need to click and subscribe.
Click
essentially, yes. So that's I was a little annoyed by that he didn't give a little more than that.
Every scene he was in, you ended up him saying a sentence like that, and then the person who was interrogating him or who he was talking to. It didn't matter who it was. They were just tell us more. Why aren't you telling us? That was every scene.
Essentially. And
honestly, that was us as the audience too. We were just okay, tell us more. We're here, Kurt Russell. Tell us. I mean, we need to get Kurt Russell out of there, out of the Lee Shaw needs to be freed somehow because I feel like he's better off freelance right now.
I think right now they're building towards how it's going to split. I think is his name Tim?
Who's that? The bearded dude?
The bearded dude.
I believe so. Yeah,
yes.
Tim.
So I believe Tim is he's already shown some of his disillusionment in general with Monarch as an organization, and I think he's going to help Kurt Russell escape in some form or fashion.
He just wants to know more.
Yeah, he wants to know more, and just like everything he's been saying has kind of been leaning towards like he has a more tentative, like less strong like connection to Monarch. I think he sees
he was the
Monarch
guy in the basement. Remember?
Yes, I think he's like he sees Monarch as like a means to an end rather than as being like the core driving principle of what he's doing.
Yeah. Like he doesn't really necessarily believe in their cause, but he believes in what they're discovering, like that kind of thing.
Yeah, like he's, very much into like their research and what they're doing.
Yeah.
But yeah, like he doesn't care about like the overall arching idea of an organization like Monarch.
Yeah.
Like the bureaucratic stuff and all that kind of stuff and like what they're actually like sometimes doing.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that happening too. I really can.
Because the only thing is like if they're gonna do something ridiculous, like if somehow the kids are gonna break him out, then I don't believe that at all. Like that is an unbelievable.
I think
idea.
they're on their way to Africa. I think they're gonna leave him behind.
Yes, I think they will. But I think that's another thing. Is like okay, so if they were to break him out, then they gotta do a whole detour to break him out, then to go to Africa.
A lot of air miles going on right now.
Yeah.
I will say though, the most entertaining part of this episode, like I thoroughly enjoyed it 100%, was the fact that we are experiencing for the first time as an audience the going through the aftermath of a Godzilla attack / battle. I don't think we've ever seen anything like this to this point where you're talking about refugee camps.
Yeah.
Like in San Francisco, like people didn't want to leave. They have like these built up shacks and stuff in the middle of the roads.
Yeah.
And they're going through the city, and it's like a quarantine zone, and they're going through the building. They're talking about the foundation being all messed up. Like these are all legitimate things that you think about briefly while you're watching like any Godzilla movie. Like you literally name it. The thought of, oh, I wonder what's happening down there in like the city. Like you see the people running the sidewalks, but you don't know. You don't ever think about what happens next, right?
Yeah.
And this kind of shows all of it, like the debris everywhere, and the fact that looters, those are a thing, right? Like, I mean, yeah, of course, there's gonna be looters. There's people living in the subway because they're homeless and they were like left there and left behind. And they're traumatized. Like all of that, I would thoroughly enjoyed all of that. Yeah.
That's an excellent point right there. I think a lot of times with TV shows and movies that deal with like destructive events, it's usually pretty cut and dry. It's like good guy wins, bad guy loses. Hooray, everything is good now. So but I feel like there has been this movement in some movies and things like that to kind of show that a little bit more. They haven't gone super far into it, but you do see it in some like the DC movies now. They're like dealing with like the destruction that happens, and I think it's a really cool like it's a dark side of the events that are happening. It's making them more real. It's making the world more whole. Because it takes some of that like gloss that removes us in some ways from the events, and I think especially with Godzilla, because of his origins and and what he is based out of, with the trauma from the atomic weapons, it's important to the story, and it's important to the feel of Godzilla for you to understand and know that destruction, because it's based out of such a real visceral pain that was being expressed by the Japanese people when they created Godzilla. So I think seeing them go through the ruins of San Francisco and you seeing, just all the destruction that has happened and, the refugees and the way that people have to live now, I think, we live in the United States and we do live a very sheltered life in the sense of, like, we don't see a whole lot of these moments where there's these huge catastrophic events.
Right, yeah.
It's, maybe once every 20 years we see a snippet of this. Like one of the most recent events, like Katrina or 9/11, like those type of things. We see like these moments, but a lot of times you don't see it on such a large scale. As an entire city being just annihilated. So it's very interesting to see this, and just how the people are reacting, and and just how how the government is reacting to this city.
Yeah.
It seems like in general the government is a positive entity in this world, and hopefully it stays that way. Who knows? They've had some interactions with the military, and for the most part, I would say, although you're supposed to feel for the heroes, like so far it's been understandably, like you understand what the soldiers are doing in this moment. Like you understand that that our heroes are in the wrong in the moment.
Right. Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. That's a good point too. I thought it was interesting with Kate's mom, and obviously worked for some organization that's like helping, and so she's
going. I think they work for FEMA.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. FEMA, and they're driving back and forth, like they're trying to help, trying to do their part. And she mentioned like she's getting like memorabilia, like stuff that is important, like sentimental value, that kind of stuff. And then all in the meantime, she's unraveling this, oh, my husband had a whole other life kind of thing. I don't know. Her mom was a very interesting character to me.
Yeah. Like, I understand her mom. Okay, so I will say that was an extremely annoying part of the episode was Kate's relationship with her mother.
Oh, she just dropped the...
Okay, not only that,
yeah,
but she drops that on her mother, and although it was not specifically well-timed, I could understand it in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
Until later in the episode where it is revealed that she is her father's daughter. Like her owed like cheating situation.
Yes, correct.
Like is very like prominent, and I'm like, okay, like I get that you and it does give like this. It does give this idea of like she's kind of maybe afraid of being her father in some ways. Because she does the same type of... When she found this out, she understands that she's exactly like her father.
Yeah.
But, like, I don't know. I feel like that was extremely, like... It was a moment where you dislike her because... I don't know. For me, I find it really, really hard for someone to call somebody out for something that you are doing yourself.
Yeah,
like,
no, trust me.
The hypocrisy, like, it's one thing to be, like, high and mighty. And that sometimes that's hard, and it's like... But at least be high and mighty and have those morals. But if you're high and mighty and you are also the hypocrite, that I find that is a very hard thing to like comprehend.
Yeah, and her character has already been making questionable like choices throughout, as far as like decision making in traumatic events.
Yes,
and then to throw on top of that she is just like a liar and a hypocrite, all in the same. Like, I mean, they even went back to show you the flashbacks. It said G-Day, like minus 2 days, right? Like, so it hasn't G-Day hasn't happened yet, and she's asked to move in with her girlfriend, and it seemed like all happy dory, and then it goes like the next day, and she's with some other girl, and I'm like, okay, all right, well. Your questionable choices from previous episodes, and this choice now, you got a lot to redeem yourself if you're going to be a likable character moving forward.
And also, I think problematically, storyline-wise, I felt it undercut something that could have been a very, like, prominent and very, like, hard and, like, important scene and moment. I think it ended up burying and undercutting her relationship with her girlfriend in that moment with the principal, and like that decision-making moment of like who goes, who stays.
Yeah.
Because I think that's a huge part of like the whole like survivor's guilt, building into the survivor's guilt idea of it. Like in this moment, like, well, what if her girlfriend had been the one to go and had survived? Like, I think if they had played into that moment more, I felt like that could have been I feel like that could have been a really like good moment for Kate as a character, and you really get to feel for her and understand what she's getting at, and dealing with those situations and really diving into like that idea of survivor's guilt, because that is one thing that you like that really affects the people who are in those situations. It's like, well, the why me situation.
Yeah.
I felt like they really could have dove into that, but they just decided to take a like right turn and decide to show this moment of unlikability of her character, and I felt like it overshadowed, and it didn't feel like it hit as hard, like when they were making that decision of who stays, who goes with the buses.
Yeah, that's a good point too. But I mean, I think they also make up with her character a little bit by showing her breakdown, because she does a good job of like acting that scene out, especially when they're in a subway. I guess I think it's a subway. I don't know.
I assumed it was a subway. Yeah.
And just her breakdown and
I mean I enjoyed that stuff.
If anything, like she did a good job as far as like portraying the mental breakdown, that kind of thing. But like Kentaro did a good job as far as trying to get her out of it, like that kind of thing. Like his attempt at making a connection, and it only took until May came to like kind of get her to breathe.
Yeah.
But I think it created a little bit more of that unity, because everyone's chemistry's been off, like you mentioned last week.
I mean, I think they're really trying to push, like, I feel like this episode also pushed more towards the whole, I think her and Kate are going to hook up type of situation.
Yeah. You did mention that, and then I didn't believe you, but now I kind of believe you. But
yeah.
But yeah, so then they go to her dad's office.
Yes.
And they expect a safe to be behind the painting.
Yes.
Or a poster, but it's not there.
Nope.
But they do like some cool stuff to figure out that the map is not actually the stars. It's like the country, but with the continents removed. And they figure out their next location. And
which I felt like I felt that was a really good scene, and I felt like it was an interesting callback as well, because if you remember a couple episodes ago, they do the same thing when Bill. That's how Bill and the grandmother first like kind of click.
Yeah,
is that moment where they're like, "Oh, our maps line up."
Yeah,
like she has her line, she has her type of map, and then his map lays over her, basically in the same way that Kentaro was talking about, and like he did the same thing with the lighting and stuff like that. I thought that was actually a really good like callback and connection between the two storylines, and kind of like showing another potential moment of a relationship building.
Yeah, no, I definitely sensed, and you kind of could feel like after that moment when they revealed the map together, that they did build. Kentaro and Kate definitely built something.
Yeah,
but May is seeing this as an opportunity to,
get out
and get Monarch off of her sister.
Yes.
Who's in Tacoma, Washington, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. I feel like May's character going in that direction is just going to add to the confusion of that set of characters.
Yeah.
To go along with what's happening with Lee Shaw on the other side. I don't know. I feel like they're creating unnecessary conflict, because there's currently enough conflict going on in the main storyline where I feel like it can carry the rest of the series. And now this subplot is just going to, I think, derail the series, which technically rating-wise has gone down in likability from us as audience. I enjoyed this episode still, just because of what I talked about with the aftermath.
Yeah.
But there's definitely some things in here that I got red flags like going up right now about, will this series continue to be a watch-worthy moving forward? I don't know. It needs to turn it up this next episode for sure.
Yeah, I do feel like I feel like the last two episodes have been kind of like
stagnant, right?
Like, not really, they haven't. There hasn't been a whole lot of like positive momentum. I mean, they've been laying some groundwork.
Yeah,
and I understand it's a 10-episode series. This was only episode 4 and 5.
Yeah,
so there is time, but there's also not an infinite amount of time.
Correct.
So I think that's where they need to be careful where they're stepping right now.
They're running into the Marvel territory. Not being able to finish a show.
So it'll be interesting to see where this goes, because I mean, you're talking about like you have the three young heroes are trying to get to Africa. Maybe.
Yeah. Right, yeah.
We have two who are definitely going to Africa. Lee Shaw still needs to break out somehow. Tim, there's some weird inner workings. I feel like they're gonna show some sort of relationship between him and the assistant director. Like I feel like there's something there, and I feel like there's gonna be some backstory to that there, like whether it be that they have some sort of familial connection there, or there's some sort of other business relationship that's there that needs to be figured out. And of course, what is the purpose of this series?
Yeah.
What are they really getting at in this series?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. A part of me was like, when I heard the series was coming out, I'm like, are they just trying to make are they trying to build an extended universe for Godzilla? But now I'm like, okay, yeah, they are, but also with this taking place in the past, I don't know how much more you're expanding it. I don't know, because if you've watched the trailer for the new one, which you have not, I mean, I'm kind of like, what was the point of this show besides introducing these little pits, these little craters?
Yeah.
Besides that, what's the point of this? You're not expanding anything yet.
Yeah.
But obviously, we got to see the completion of the story.
That is true. I think it'll depend on where it goes, but maybe it's about telling us what Monarch is.
Yeah.
Because I feel like that's something we haven't seen a whole lot of yet.
Yeah, I mean, you have an idea of, but you just don't have the full picture, I guess. Yeah.
But I think this will be. I think in a way, it's sort of like this episode. I think this show could be the idea of fighting for the soul of Monarch in a lot of ways.
Okay.
Where is this? Are they going to be a positive good, or are they going to be kind of diametrically opposed to what we consider to be the hero side?
Yeah.
I'm not necessarily saying bad, but they're the traditional government organization who they kind of the idea of they don't understand, man, that type of idea,
Right.
It's they're not necessarily bad, but they're not you have this hero point of view.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
But they're kind of they're not necessarily antagonists, but they're definitely friction between the hero and what they're trying to do.
Yeah, I can see that too, man. All right, any final thoughts on Monarch: Legacy of Monsters?
I'm I just really hope they we need a nice action packed quick episode to get us
so.
Kind of back into it. Maybe a decent amount of movement going wherever they're going. Let's see, them maybe by the end of the next episode. I would love it to see if they're at least in Africa, and Lee Shaw has at least worked towards his place in breaking out of wherever he is.
Yeah.
I feel like that would be a positive point, and maybe Tim has made his choice one way or the other.
Yeah.
I feel like that would be a good moment for them to be in.
Yeah, I think for me, I'm actually fine if this next episode is actually an all flashback episode and we don't see anything about the storyline that's going on in the 2014, 2015 time. I'd be fine with just all in the 50s. And
I'd be all right. I'd be all right with that too. I think, although I think,
and then maybe the 50s.
Yeah.
The 50s
or 60s.
At the end of the 50s or 60s, they end in Africa, and then the following episode picks up with them going to Africa. That's what I think.
Yeah, or even a companion episode where it's literally just back and forth. Once again, they're in Africa.
That'd be good too.
You're seeing maybe you have you're seeing maybe 56 or 57 in between the time periods that we've seen. You see the whole three main characters that we've seen in the past in Africa, and you're seeing our young people kind of going the same thing.
Yeah. I'd be fine with that too.
Yeah.
Yeah. But we'll see. We'll see where this goes. We're going to keep following it along, and hopefully we can have more positives to say moving forward.
Yeah.
But anyway, all that being said, we thank you so much for listening, and make sure you subscribe wherever you're listening, and follow us on our social medias at Royal Geek Pod. For Shamato and myself, and for T-Roll somewhere out there in the world, we say thank you so much for listening, and we will see you next time, you peasants.